The hood was still warm when Major Elijah Cross's face hit it. Not a push. A slam. Metal against cheekbone. The sharp crack of impact. His arm wrenched behind him so hard something popped in his shoulder. He did not cry out. Did not struggle. Just exhaled. Slowly. The way they taught him in survival training. Breathe through it. You think you're special? Trooper Vance's breath was hot against his ear. Think that uniform makes you somebody? Elijah wore no uniform. Just jeans and a gray Henley. The uniform was folded in his duffel in the truck bed, pressed, and ready for tomorrow's briefing at Fort Bragg. He'd been driving the speed limit on Route 87. Signaled his lane change. Hands on the wheel when the lights flared behind him. License and registration. He provided both. Slowly. Announcing every movement. I'm reaching for my wallet. It's in my front right pocket. Vance had barely looked at the license. Army ID clipped beside it. Major Elijah Cross, 18th Airborne Corps. Step out of the vehicle. Sir, can you tell me? Out. Now. Elijah had complied. Stood beside his truck, a 10-year-old Ford Ranger that ran clean, no violations, nothing. That's when Vance's partner, a younger trooper named Felton, had spotted something. Sir, is that a weapon? Elijah's gaze had followed his pointing finger. The cargo bed. His rucksack. And yes, barely visible through the open zipper, the corner of a gun case. That's a secured, hands behind your head. It's a lawfully registered hands. Now, he'd raised them. Slow. Careful. And Vance had grabbed him, spun him, and slammed him onto the hood hard enough to dent it. Now Elijah's face was pressed against warm metal, his breath fogging the paint, his mind racing through options that all ended badly. Compliance was survival. So he stayed still, even when Vance yanked his arms tighter, even when Felton rummaged through his truck without permission, without cause, even when Vance leaned close and whispered, "You people always think you're above the law. You people." Elijah closed his eyes, counted backwards from 10, felt the sun on his neck, the ache in his shoulder, the ring on his left hand pressing into his palm. He thought of Simone, his wife of 8 years, waiting for him at the house they'd just bought near base. He thought of his daughter, Zara, 6 years old, gap-toothed smile. He thought of the medal in his duffel, Bronze Star, Kandahar, for actions he still didn't talk about. And he stayed silent, because silence was the only power left. 2 hours earlier, Elijah had been smiling when he left the base commissary. Rare lately. Smiles. 3 deployments in 10 years did something to your face. Made it harder to remember how. But today was good. He'd finished his post-deployment psych eval. Clean bill. No flags. The nightmares were manageable now, the hypervigilance fading. He'd been home 4 months, and for the first time, it felt real. Stable. He picked up Zara's favorite cereal, Cinnamon Toast Crunch, contraband Simone barely tolerated, and was driving back when his phone rang. You get the cereal? Simone's voice, warm and teasing. I got the cereal. You're a bad influence. I'm her favorite parent. For now. He'd laughed. Actual laughter. I'll be home in 20. Tell Zara Daddy's making pancakes tonight. She'll lose her mind. That's the plan. He'd hung up still smiling. 10 minutes later, the lights appeared. Now Felton was holding up Elijah's service weapon. Beretta M9. Locked case. Trigger lock. Unloaded. All regulations followed. He's armed, Felton called. I see that, Vance said. Pressed harder. Elijah spoke carefully. That firearm is registered. I'm active duty military. I have documentation. You got a permit to carry in this county. It's secured and unloaded. I'm transporting it legally. Sounds like resisting to me. Elijah stopped talking. Vance's radio crackled. Dispatch asking for a status update. Traffic stop. Route 87, Vance said. Suspect armed. Requesting backup. Suspect. Not driver. Not. Service member. Suspect. Elijah felt it then. The thing he'd felt in Kandahar when mortars fell. Not fear exactly. Clarity. This could end one way or many. Only some of them let him go home. So he made his body soft. Unresisting. Let them see no threat. Backup arrived 6 minutes later. Another cruiser. 2 more troopers. They conferred in low voices while Elijah stayed bent over the hood, face turned sideways, watching the tree line blur in his peripheral vision. One of the new troopers, older, gray at the temples, approached. Major Cross. Elijah blinked. Yes, sir. The older trooper looked at Vance. You ran his ID? Armed individual, suspicious behavior. His ID says Fort Bragg. You confirm that? A pause. Too long. We were securing the scene. The older trooper's jaw tightened. He looked at Elijah. You can stand up, Major. Elijah straightened slowly. His shoulder screamed. You injured? I'm fine. He resisted. Vance started. I didn't ask you. The older trooper's voice was flat. He turned back to Elijah. I apologize for the confusion. You're free to go. Confusion. That's what they were calling it. Elijah nodded once. Collected his license. His registration. Walked to his truck on legs that felt distant. He drove away without looking back. And 12 miles down the road, he pulled over. Sat there. Hands shaking now. Finally, he called the one number he'd hoped he wouldn't need. Sergeant Major? It's Cross. I need you to make a call. At Fort Bragg, Sergeant Major Rawl listened. Then he made 3 calls. The last one was to a general who didn't like being interrupted during dinner. The general listened. Then he stood from the table and said to his aide, Get me a convoy. The convoy rolled out at 1847 hours. 6 Humvees. 32 personnel. Full battle rattle. Plates, helmets, the works. No weapons drawn. Didn't need to be. The vehicles themselves were the message. Brigadier General Hawthorne rode in the lead truck, jaw set, still wearing his dinner uniform because there hadn't been time to change. Beside him, Sergeant Major Rawl pulled up the body cam footage Elijah had activated on his phone during the stop. It was legal in North Carolina. One-party consent. The video showed everything. Vance's hands on Elijah. The slam. The whispered words. You people. Hawthorne watched it twice. Said nothing. But his knuckles went white on the armrest. ETA, he asked. 12 minutes, sir. Make it 8. Trooper Vance was filling out paperwork when the call came. Dispatch. Boys tight. Vance, you still at the Route 87 stop location? Negative. Cleared scene 40 minutes ago. I'm at the station. Copy. You're going to want to stay there. Why? A pause. Background chatter. There's a military convoy heading your way. Vance stopped writing. Say again. Fort Bragg. 6 vehicles. They're asking for you by name. His stomach dropped. That's not. They can't just. They're 2 miles out. Vance looked at Felton across the office. The younger trooper had gone pale. What do we do? Felton whispered. Vance didn't answer. He was thinking about the man he'd slammed onto the HUD. The quiet one. The one who hadn't fought back. Major Cross. He'd Googled the name after filing the report. Found a commendation from 2019. Something about extracting wounded soldiers under fire in Afghanistan. Bronze Star. Purple Heart. Vance had closed the browser. Told himself it didn't matter. Now it mattered. The front doors opened. Captain Yates, station commander, walked in fast, face like granite. My office. Now. The convoy parked outside the state police barracks in formation. Precise. Deliberate. Soldiers exited. Stood at parade rest beside their vehicles. Silent. General Hawthorne stepped out last. He was 56. Silver-haired. 6'4". He'd been in Fallujah when Elijah Cross was still in high school. Had signed off on Elijah's Bronze Star personally after reading the after-action report that left him speechless for an hour. And now one of his majors had been assaulted on a public road for driving while black. He walked into the barracks. Captain Yates met him at the door. They'd spoken on the phone during the drive. General Hawthorne. Captain, I've reviewed the incident. Trooper Vance's report claims, I've seen the body cam footage, Hawthorne interrupted. From Major Cross's phone. Would you like to see it? Yates hesitated. That won't be necessary. Good. Where's Vance? My office. But General, you need to understand, this is a state matter. Major Cross is a decorated combat veteran under my command. What happened to him on that road is absolutely my matter. Yates opened his mouth. Closed it. Stepped aside. Vance stood when Hawthorne entered. Tried to. Sit down, Hawthorne said. It wasn't loud. Didn't need to be. Vance sat. Hawthorne didn't. Tell me what you saw when you pulled over Major Cross. Sir, I don't. Tell me. Vance swallowed. I observed a vehicle with a broken taillight. His taillight wasn't broken. I've seen a truck. What else? The driver made a suspicious movement. He handed you his license, which identified him as an active-duty Army officer. What did you do next? Silence. You ordered him out of the vehicle. Searched without probable cause. Then you assaulted him. Slammed his face into his hood hard enough to leave a bruise across his cheekbone. Hawthorne leaned forward. Do you know what Major Cross was doing 18 months ago? Vance said nothing. He was pulling 3 wounded soldiers out of a burning vehicle in Kandahar. Under enemy fire. He took shrapnel to the leg. Kept going. Saved all 3. Hawthorne's voice dropped. That man is a hero. And you treated him like a criminal because of the color of his skin. I didn't. I have the footage. I have witnesses. I have your own partner's statement that Cross was cooperative the entire time. Hawthorne straightened. You're done. Captain Yates stepped in. General, personnel decisions are yours. And if you don't make the right one, this footage goes to every news outlet in the state, along with a full report to the DOJ. Yates's face went rigid. Hawthorne turned back to Vance. You put your hands on one of my soldiers. You humiliated him. And you did it because you thought he was powerless. He stepped closer. He's not. Outside, Elijah sat in his truck in the barracks parking lot. He'd driven back after the sergeant major called, told him the general wanted a statement. Now he watched soldiers stand at ease beside Humvees, their presence a wall of solidarity he hadn't asked for but needed more than he'd admit. His phone buzzed. Simone, where are you? He typed, finishing something. Home soon. You okay? He stared at the question. Thought about lying. Typed, I will be. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Reappeared. I love you. Love you too. He pocketed the phone. Saw General Hawthorne emerge from the barracks. Elijah got out. Stood at attention. Hawthorne waved him at ease. How's the shoulder? Fine, sir. Medic looked at it. Not yet. You'll go to the TMC tonight. That's an order. Yes, sir. Hawthorne studied him. You did everything right, Major. You know that. Elijah said nothing. You kept your composure. Protected yourself. Documented everything. Hawthorne's voice softened. You shouldn't have had to. No, sir. A pause. Vance is being suspended pending investigation. Full internal review. And I've requested the state AG look into the department's stop patterns. Elijah nodded slowly. This doesn't fix it, Hawthorne continued. What happened to you? But it's a start. Appreciate it, sir. Hawthorne extended his hand. Elijah shook it. Go home, Major. Hug your family. Yes, sir. The convoy left in formation. Elijah watched them go. Then he climbed into his truck and drove toward the house where lights were on and his daughter was waiting. Zara was asleep when he got home. Elijah stood in her doorway, watching her breathe. Unicorn nightlight casting soft pink across her face. She looked peaceful. Safe. He wanted to keep her that way forever. She waited up as long as she could. Simone's voice, quiet behind him. He turned. She stood in the hallway, arms crossed, eyes searching his face. She saw the bruise immediately. Elijah, I'm okay. Don't. She stepped closer, fingertips hovering near his cheek. Don't tell me you're okay when you're not. He caught her hand. Held it. I am now. She studied him, then pulled him into the living room, sat him on the couch, disappeared into the kitchen. Returned with ice wrapped in a towel. Tell me. So he did. All of it. The stop. The slam. The words. Simone listened without interrupting, her hand tightening on his knee. When he finished, she was quiet for a long time. You called Rawl, she finally said. Yeah. Good. Her voice was firm. You shouldn't have had to. But I'm glad you did. The general showed up with a convoy. Her eyebrows rose. A convoy. 6 Humvees. Full company. A smile ghosted across her face. Brief. Fierce. Good. She leaned her head on his shoulder. They sat like that, the house silent around them, the ice melting against his cheek. I keep thinking about Zara, Elijah said quietly. What I'm supposed to tell her. How to keep her safe in a world that... He trailed off. Simone lifted her head. You tell her the truth. That some people will see her and make assumptions. But she's brilliant and strong and loved. And she has a father who shows her every day what dignity looks like. Elijah closed his eyes. I just want her to be safe. I know. Me too. Simone took his hand. But safe isn't the same as small. We don't make ourselves smaller to make them comfortable. You taught me that. He looked at her. Every time you put on that uniform. Every time you came home from deployment and still believed this country was worth serving. She squeezed his hand. You don't make yourself small, Elijah. Don't teach Zara to either. 3 days later, Elijah returned to duty. His shoulders still ached. The bruise had faded to yellow-green. But he walked into the briefing room at 0800 sharp, back straight, uniform perfect. The room fell silent when he entered. Then Sergeant Major Rawl started clapping. Slow. Deliberate. One by one, the others joined. 30 soldiers. Standing ovation. Elijah's throat tightened. He nodded once. Took his seat. General Hawthorne entered. At ease. He waited for them to sit. Before we begin, an update on the Route 87 incident. The room went still. Trooper Vance has been terminated. The state police are conducting a full review of stop patterns on that highway. And the AG's office has opened an investigation into racial profiling practices statewide. He looked at Elijah. Major Cross handled an impossible situation with the professionalism we've come to expect from him. His actions and his documentation made accountability possible. Another pause. We protect our own. Always. Now let's get to work. 2 weeks later, the letter arrived. Handwritten. Forwarded through official channels. Elijah opened it at the kitchen table while Simone made breakfast and Zara colored at the counter. The return address was a law office in Raleigh. Inside, a single page. Major Cross, my name is Anthony Wright. I'm representing 4 other drivers, all black, who were stopped by Trooper Vance on Route 87 in the past 18 months. Your footage and testimony have made it possible for us to pursue a civil rights case. Without your courage, these families would have no recourse. I know you didn't choose this fight, but because you stood firm, others won't have to face it alone. Thank you for your service. Both kinds. Anthony Wright. ESQ. Elijah read it twice. Set it down carefully. What is it? Simone asked. Other people. From the same stop. She turned off the stove. Came to stand beside him. Read over his shoulder. You changed something, she said softly. Maybe. Definitely. Zara looked up from her coloring. Daddy, what's recourse? Elijah smiled. It means getting things made right, baby. Oh. She went back to her drawing. That's good. Yeah, Elijah said. It is. 3 months later, the settlement was announced. The state police agreed to mandatory bias training, body cameras for all traffic stops, and a civilian review board. 4 officers were terminated. Vance faced criminal charges for assault. The news ran the story for a week. Elijah didn't watch. He'd said what he needed to say in one interview, standing outside Fort Bragg in his dress uniform, Simone beside him. The reporter had asked how it felt to get justice. Elijah had paused. Justice isn't just accountability, he'd said. It's change. Making sure this doesn't happen to the next person. Do you think this changes things? I think it's a start. That was all he'd given them. The rest, his anger, his fear, the nightmares that returned briefly after the stop, that was private. For Simone. For his therapist. For the quiet moments when Zara was asleep and he could finally let his guard down. 6 months after the stop, Elijah stood in front of 200 new recruits at Fort Bragg. Guest speaker. Leadership seminar. He told them about Kandahar. About the burning vehicle. About carrying men twice his size through gunfire because leaving them wasn't an option. Then he told them about Route 87. Some of you will deploy, he said. You'll face enemies with weapons and ideologies designed to break you. And you'll come home expecting safety. He paused. But some of you will find that the hardest battles are the ones fought in your own country, where the uniform doesn't protect you, where your service doesn't matter because of your skin. The room was silent. When that happens, you have choices. You can be silent. You can be small. Or you can stand firm and demand accountability. He looked across the faces. Young, earnest, hopeful. I chose accountability. It cost me sleep, peace, a sense of safety I'm still rebuilding. His voice softened. But it also created change, and that's worth the cost. Afterward, a young private approached. Black woman, barely 20. Sir, can I ask you something? Of course. How do you keep believing that it's worth it? Elijah thought about Zara, about Simone, about the letter from Anthony Wright and the families who'd found recourse. I keep believing because the alternative is giving up, and giving up means they win. He met her eyes. I won't give them that. She nodded slowly. Thank you, sir. Thank you for serving. That night, Elijah sat on the back porch with Simone, watching fireflies blink in the dark. Zara was inside, asleep after a long day at summer camp. You tired? Simone asked. Always. She smiled, leaned against him. Proud of you. For what? For not letting it break you. He kissed the top of her head. I had help. They sat in comfortable silence, the night warm around them, the weight of the past 6 months settling into something manageable. Not gone, never gone, but manageable. Elijah thought about the convoy, about General Hawthorne's hand on his shoulder, About the standing ovation and the letter and the changes, small, imperfect, but real, that had come from one recorded traffic stop. He thought about the choice he'd made to document, to call for help, to refuse to be erased. And he thought about the choices still ahead. Because the fight wasn't over. It never was. But tonight, he had this. His wife beside him, his daughter safe inside. A future that was uncertain but his to shape. That was enough. What are you thinking? Simone asked. Elijah smiled into the dark. That I'm home. Yeah, she said softly. You are. And for now, in this moment, that was everything.